Hey there, Tracy Cotton with Morrow Insurance Agency. And today is part 4 in a series of 5 sessions on agritourism tips and insurance. And today we're going to talk about animal safety. We've talked about the agritourism warning law signs and what they do. We've talked about whether or not your farm owner's policy takes care of your agritourism exposures. And yesterday we talked about going through and doing a safety walkthrough at your farm before you actually start your agritourism activities so that you are more aware of where you need to improve your safety. One of the things that we see a lot of in farms and agritourism in general is that people want to figure out if they can let the visitors to their farm interact with their animals. And there's a few things that I just wanted to touch on today that I'm sure you probably are very aware of, but it's always a good reminder to have somebody else just bring it up and maybe get you to put some thought into it. That there are some things that might be a good idea to really focus on to provide a level of safety between your visitors and your animals. And so, first off, I'll just talk briefly about horses because that's something that is really one of the more traditional agritourism type of activities. And really, the funny thing is there used to be like almost 2 different categories of farms. You had farms that raised things, and then you had horse farms. And so a lot of people nowadays actually have both. They both grow and raise things on their farm, and then they also have horses. And, they're curious as to what they can do with visitors and whether or not they should let their visitors bring horses out to their facility and those kinds of things. And because it's pretty traditional, there's actually, I say pretty traditional in that there's already some established insurance markets available for horse activity. And so trying to find an insurance carrier to let you have horseback riding, trail riding, boarding of horses, as well as, obviously, you might even have something a little bit more non-traditional like horse therapy, where people are actually taking and letting visitors interact with horses to help them with issues they may be having, with behavioral or mental type of issues that the horse contact is therapeutic. And so we definitely know that those are out there. And those are actually, within the realm of just the idea of always being safe, making sure that no visitor is interacting with your horses without supervision of some sort, that somebody really needs to be kind of watching and being aware. Obviously, if you're sending them off on a trail ride and you are very familiar with the behavior of your horses, then you know that you're in good shape. But those are some of the things that, just you have to be careful of. But making sure that people don't have easy access to your horses when you're not around. And that's actually kind of like an agritourism type of thing where even if you are not planning on having your visitors interact with your horses, I've actually got a customer that they have a couple of horses and they really didn't want the public to interact with their horses. But that's kind of a difficult thing. They had to make sure that it was because they have a little rental cottage, the vacation rental cottage on their property. And some people that come in to rent their property, they wanted to make sure they knew that they do not appreciate anybody really interacting with their horses, other than looking at them is okay. But actually riding them because these 2 horses happen to be older and are really, even the family doesn't ride them anymore. So those are those kinds of things you have to be aware of. The next thing that I want to talk about, though, is petting zoos, or how much interaction do you want for your visitors to have with your other livestock. And, if you've got baby goats, you've got some baby, you've got rabbits, chicks, ducks, whatever you want maybe to have your visitors interact with. there is some serious concerns about the diseases that can be passed from livestock to people. It's just from animals to people. In other words, really those kinds of diseases, primarily gastrointestinal type of diseases, such as E. coli, are serious concerns. There's a wealth of information on the CDC website, as well as many other agricultural websites, on really what to be careful of, to know more about how to prevent those types of outbreaks. But just to give you an example, it's only been 5 years ago that the North Carolina State Fair had a huge outbreak of E. coli from a petting zoo, including one child that died. We're talking about like over 100 people were affected. And that's big because typically it's not that many at any given time. But it, I don't know all the circumstances. It may have been that he did not have a proper hand washing station. Hand washing is the number one thing that the CDC and everybody recommends to try to prevent infection. But it's also not actually bringing outside food into the area where the animals are, so that they might actually get something in or around their drink or their food and then take and ingest it. Children, elderly, pregnant women, obviously those who may have compromised immune systems are all much more susceptible to these types of things. So it's a real concern. And what we're seeing is that some farms are just limiting the contact entirely. You can't really get up close and too personal with the animals at all. They're through a fence. You can see them. If you want to feed them, they've got PVC pipes that you can actually drop food through and watch the food go in. They get to feed it that way. They're not having a lot of hand to animal contact, body to animal contact, and certainly no food to animal contact, because those are all real big safety concerns. It is very difficult nowadays for me to try to find somebody who will insure a petting zoo because of these types of possibilities. But a hand washing station for a farm that just has some animals that people may have contact with water and soap is essential. The one last thing that I want to talk about, and it's kind of a sore spot for a lot of folks, is pets, primarily dogs. I have, I know some farms that would really like everybody to be able to bring their pets out to visit with them. When their visitors come, they want them to feel comfortable enough to bring that good dog that's on a leash and bring them out and enjoy the whole family for a picnic, out in the fields or whatever it is that they want to do there on the farm that they're allowed to do. And they want to bring their dog with them. And the farm thinks that's a great idea too. And I'm just really not a big fan of it, because I think that there's no way for a farm, even with adequate personnel, to truly be able to control the behaviors of somebody else's pet being brought onto the premises. I think that there's too much possibility of, you can't check all the shot records, you can't know all of the behaviors, and I believe that it actually could add to this discomfort of the other visitors. Just because even on a leash, a dog that may be not well behaved, barking, and some behaviors are pretty normal. These are just dog behaviors. But for somebody who's not a dog person, it might frighten them, or it may make them feel uncomfortable. It may be disruptive to them. So I think that the balance there is kind of is one to be cognizant of. And I do know that the other possibility is if somebody brings their dog out to your farm, what if the dog gets loose? What could it do? What could it do to your actual animals? That would be very disruptive and possibly very dangerous for a dog to get into an area that you have animals that you're raising. So keep these things in mind. If you're going to come up with a rule, obviously, if you've made it very public, you've put the signs up, no pets allowed, no dogs in this particular area. If you're just limiting an area especially where food is being served, these are all just I know they seem maybe common sense, but I definitely wanted to bring those up to you today. And I hope that some of these tips are helping. Tomorrow is going to be kind of a wrap up. We're going to talk a little bit about signage, other signage other than just the agritourism sign. We're going to talk a little bit about training of your employees, and also just a couple more helpful tips that I think might be worthwhile for you on the agritourism side, for you to help with your insurance as well. I hope that these are helpful, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.